All right, let's dive right into this explainer. Today, we're going to explore how a 19th century Korean philosophy radically reimagined humanity's entire relationship with the Earth. We'll be unpacking this profound concept, the Donghak Johazing view of Earth, and we'll see exactly how it forged a completely new path known as autogenous modernity.
Now, before we get into the rich history and all those complex concepts, I want you to just think about something for a second. Can a 19th century Korean philosophy actually help solve today's ecological crisis? I know it might seem like a bit of a stretch connecting the 1800s to our modern environmental issues, but as we're going to see, our current dominant view of nature might desperately need exactly this kind of historical shift. To get there, here's our agenda for today. First, the clash of two worlds. Second, the space in between. Third, the Johazing view. Fourth, heaven, earth, and ghosts. Fifth, comparing two modernities. And finally, a philosophy for today.
Okay, Section 1, Clash of Two Worlds, the Birth of Donghak Thought.
You can really imagine the tension of the time, right? Donghak didn't just appear out of nowhere. It emerged at the exact intersection of incoming Western learning, which was often called Seohak, and the inherent evolution of Eastern thought. It was a direct, active response to the perceived harms of Western modernity. It absorbed elements of Taoism, things like inner training and direct communication with the divine, all in an effort to save the East.
And we can actually trace the development of this thought through four really critical stages. It kicks off with the foundational angel questioning and answering phase, moves into a deep reflective writing period at Yunjikam, progresses to practical teachings on avoiding harm, and ultimately, it blows up into the massive Donghak peasant revolution. So this wasn't just some armchair theory. This was actively mobilizing a population.
Moving on to Section 2, the space in between, defining the framework. So to really grasp how this whole movement worked, we need to talk about liminality. It basically means the space right in between. In the context of Donghak, liminality served as this transitional, kind of ambiguous paradigm shift. They were caught right between the old, rigid Confucian views and the rapidly incoming Western mechanistic views. Donghak positioned itself right on that border.
And by operating in that liminal space, they achieved what scholars call autogenous modernity. Rather than just importing Western modernization wholesale, Donghak blended those intense external pressures with their very own indigenous philosophical growth. It was completely self-generated modernization, presenting a totally distinct alternative value system to the West.
Section 3, the Johazing view, a new epistemology of Earth.
Okay, so Donghak totally tossed out the idea that the Earth is just dead matter. Instead, under the Johazing view, Earth is recognized as an active, harmonious partner. It's a space of inaction, or non-wihua, which means existing in natural harmony. It's like letting a forest grow without forcing it. And they also emphasized vaporization, or gihua, which isn't about literal steam, but more about the invisible, dynamic flow of vital energy. Basically, the Earth is a living, breathing ecosystem, constantly interacting with transcendent heaven.
Because the Earth is this dynamic space, it became an actual realm of practice for everyday people. And honestly, this was a profoundly radical idea at the time. Through the practice of Shi-Chan-Ju, meaning bearing the Lord of Heaven within, every single citizen suddenly had the power to communicate with the divine. It entirely dismantled the old Confucian notion that only kings receive the Earth's vital energy. It made every single person spiritually powerful.
Section 4, heaven, earth, and ghosts, dismantling traditional boundaries. I want you to really let this quote sink in for a moment. They know heaven and earth, but they do not know Guisin. That Guisin is also me. This perspective completely shatters those traditional boundaries of who or what holds sacred energy. It suggests the divine, the ghosts or spirits, aren't just external entities floating somewhere above us, but are fundamentally intertwined with our very own existence. And that brings us to the concept of transcendent demonology within Donghak. By integrating ghosts straight into the infinite expandability of yin and yang, Donghak established an entirely new relationship between heaven and earth. They basically took concepts that were traditionally confined to the inner, personal realm and applied them directly to transcendent heaven. It is a breathtakingly integrated perspective.
Now, this wasn't just a bunch of scholars debating abstract theology. It was a highly practical mechanism. By reorganizing the boundary between the sacred and the profane, Donghak broke down the walls between the elite and the commoners. It gave everyday people their subjectivity back, literally putting them at the center of the cosmos.
Section 5, comparing two modernities, East versus West.
When you put the two frameworks side by side, the contrast is honestly pretty wild. Western modernity, sweeping the globe at that exact same time, is built on this mechanistic cosmology. It treats nature strictly as a tool, a completely separate object meant for conquest and human utilization. But Donghak, it features an integrated view. Nature is an equal partner in coexistence, literally corresponding to the divine itself. The human role isn't about conquest, it's all about harmony.
So, the big takeaway here is that Donghak offered a fiercely life-centered alternative to the mechanical, resource-driven engine of Western modernization. The goal wasn't to dominate the Earth, it was to exist within its harmonious, liminal boundaries.
And that brings us to Section 6, a philosophy for today, modern relevance and ecological ethics.
We all know our modern society is facing an unprecedented ecological crisis right now, and it's largely driven by that exact mechanistic resource extraction worldview we were just talking about. Reevaluating Donghak actually gives us an incredibly robust ideological foundation for the harmonious coexistence of humans and nature. It's pretty much exactly the mindset shift we need to combat environmental collapse today.
And hey, this isn't just academic theory either. By viewing the Earth as a realm of vaporization, harmony, and divine connection, this philosophy naturally translates into sustainable actions. This worldview directly supports things like organic farming methods and a profound fundamental respect for all life. When you see the dirt under your feet as a space of transcendent harmony, you just treat it entirely differently, you know?
Which brings us right back to where we started. I'll leave you with this final, provocative thought to ponder. If global society today genuinely adopted this autonomous, life-centered view of the Earth, actually seeing it as a space of transcendental harmony, instead of just a giant pool of resources waiting to be conquered, how drastically would that change the future trajectory of our planet? Thank you so much for exploring this with me today. Keep questioning the boundaries.